Hi team, I hope you're all well. Today I come to you from my bedroom floor with two of my bookshelves. Not feeling too good today, feeling pretty rough still, so it's a comfy hoodie and no makeup kind of day, but I wanted to do my October wrap up. So without further ado, I took part in 2 readathons in October, and that included Charms Extra Credit by G at Book Roast and Spookathon by Lala from Books and Lala even. So tired. So the books I read this month, I read 17 books in total this month, which is a lot for me, like so many books. So we'll just go in order of how I read them, to be honest. They do sort of follow the order of, there was a book, and then I read Charms, and then I read Spookathon, and then I read loads of other books. So we're just going to go in that order because that's how I've written them down. So the first book I read was Last Night Another Soldier by Andy McNab. This appears to be working again now because I haven't got my lights on. I was sat in a window because it's the weekend. So I gave this 4 stars. I do like Andy McNab stuff, especially the stuff where it's set in the war. So I do find it very interesting. Andy McNab used to be in the army. I think it's the army. And a lot of his stories are set from then. This was just a short story, so really easy read. I got it from the library, but I am looking forward to reading. I finally got it, I'm so excited. I am looking forward to reading this, which was the first one that he did. So I'm looking forward to finally getting around to this. It's a true, he was in the SAS, apologies. It's a true story of an SAS patrol behind the lines in Iraq. So it looks really good. Very excited to give that a read eventually, she says. I do have quite a few other Andy McNab books, so yeah, I look forward to giving those a read. The second book I read was part of Charms, so this was for Lumos. I don't know if I'm going to be able to remember all of these, but I will do my best. So this was for... no, it wasn't. It was for Incendio, which is fire. So I read The Darkest Days by R.L. Blalock. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a short story, but it is in a series that have longer stories. So it was just the start of like a zombie apocalypse, if you like. So I do have books with the word fire on them. I wanted to read Fireman by Joe Hill. However, it's a very big book and it was only a week-long readathon, so I didn't bother because put that back in after. I didn't bother because it just seemed redundant. It would have taken me all week to read it, so I picked something short with fire on the cover instead, which I hope counts because that's what I've done. 5 out of 5 stars for that. And then Lumos was with a light cover, so I went for The Grey Man by Andy McNab. I gave this 3 stars. It wasn't army based. About a guy who works in a bank. He gets treated quite badly. He's next in line for the bank manager job, if you like, and the bank manager actually treats him really bad. And one night he just jokingly says, well, his wife actually jokingly suggests to him, why don't you rob the bank? And a few weeks later he decides to do it. So yeah, it was quite good. It was alright. It wasn't one of my favourites of his, but it was alright. Short story again, not very long at all. And then I read, what was this for now? I can't remember which charm this was for now, but I read The Dark Tower and the Gunslinger by Stephen King. I was really hoping to love this because it's a massive series, and it's one of his very first books. I believe he came up with this idea when he was like 17. I read the thing at the beginning of the book, and he decided to hold off until he was about 21 to actually write it properly and like get it published and stuff. So I only gave it 3 stars. I wasn't a huge fan. The language in it made a bit of a barrier for me. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like cowboyish, if you like, language, like old school cowboyish language, which is totally fine in a film because it kind of computes in my head if I can hear them, but reading it is kind of difficult. I was like, what does that even say? I would have to reread a line like 2 or 3 times. I've really struggled with it, so it just wasn't up there with a classic for me. I probably won't carry on the series for that reason, because if the series was smaller, I probably would, but the books just get bigger and bigger to the point that I think you end up with, like, I don't know, something ridiculous. Too many books. Too many pages, even. So, that was everything for Charms. So I read The Darkest Days, The Grey Man, and The Dark Tower, because The Dark Tower took me so long to get through. I was hoping to do more, but I didn't get up to it. And then I read this was an interrupted one because it's on my list, it's interrupting. I read our book club read, which is The Fourth Monkey by J.D. Barker. Really enjoyed this. I actually gave it 5 stars. It is a almost retired cop who has been tracking down this serial killer for the last 5 years, I think it is. And said serial killer gets hit by a bus and killed en route to delivering a package. So this serial killer will cut off an ear, and then a couple of days later will cut out a tongue, and then a couple of days later will cut out the eyes, and deliver these packages to the families of the victim. And then a few days later after that, we'll leave the dead body in a park somewhere or something. Hence the fourth monkey killer. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, do no evil. So that was his mantra, and it is very clever in the way it's set. So one chapter is from the view of Sam, our detective, or from the view of one of his other detectives, or from the view of the victim, the latest victim who is now taken. Then the in-between chapters are usually from the view of our murderer, our killer, when he was a child. Just to sort of get a background of where he's come from and all the rest of it. Anyway, there's a massive twist at the end, and it was just a really good book. I really enjoyed it. Very disturbing. Probably one of the most disturbing thrillers I've ever read. And I loved it. Thought it was brilliant. Pretty good responses from our entire book club, to be honest. I have done a review of this. I'll leave a link below. It's on my blog. So you can go check the review out if you want. And then on Spookathon, so this was set up by Lala from Books and Lala. There were 5 prompts, and I covered all 5, but with 4 books. So I can't fully remember all of the prompts, but I'm just going to show you the books I did anyway. So the first book I read was The Girl from the Other Side. It's a manga. It was pretty cool, to be fair. I had the second one as well, which is good because I am reading this now for my Newts Readathon in November. So there is a third one, which I'm a little bit bummed about because I have already read the second one, and now I'm like, oh, I haven't got the third one. So I'm going to have to order it because I obviously need to know how the story ends. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really good. It's my first ever manga, and I've really enjoyed it. Thought it was brilliant. Didn't realise how quick a manga read can be as well, especially if it's clear and understandable. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I thought it was brilliant. The second book I read was The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. This is a graphic novel, which I lent from the library and have since given back. I quite enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. This was the first volume, which I've only just realised as I've written it down now. So I'm going to have to continue to read the story to figure out what goes on, but it was very good. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a good fast-paced graphic novel. It was good. I enjoyed it. Pet Sematary by Stephen King. This was to cover book with a purple cover, but This obviously doesn't have the purple cover. Mine does. I have given it to my mum to read because she's been going on for ages about it. So I enjoyed it up until there was, I think, maybe 75% through. I was like, this isn't that particularly scary. Like, it's odd, but it's not that scary. Anyway, the last 25%, I was like, oh, okay, this is weird. This is odd. I was sat at home. It was a Friday night. I just got in from work. I finished the book and I shit myself basically because I live across the road from a cemetery and I was like, why have I just done that to myself? Can't understand why I've just done that to myself. I was listening to it on Audible for the most part, so maybe that's why it wasn't as scary. It was narrated by Michael C. Hall, who plays Dexter, if you've ever watched the programme. And I was like, oh yeah, it'll be really creepy, it'll make it dead creepy. And it was in some parts, but I don't know, maybe reading it makes it creepier, because the last 25% or so I did read it, because it turns out I am faster at reading it than Michael C. Hall is at narrating it. Hadn't realised at the time that you can turn the speed up. So I just read the last 25%. It was pretty creepy. 4 out of 5 stars. I quite liked it though. I'm glad I've read it. That is my first... Oh no, it isn't. That's a lie because I've read The Gunslinger. It's my second, like, ever Stephen King novel though. So I really enjoyed it. Thought it was alright. Then How to Survive a Ghost Story by Maddie Goodenkauf. And Maddie, I'm so sorry if I'm bloody pronouncing that wrong. Maddie is a friend of mine off Twitter and Instagram. We've met through the Bookstagram blogging verse, and she released this book in September. I think it was September. And the minute it went on sale, I bought it. I think I was one of the first people, if not the first person, to buy this, and I absolutely loved it. I wanted to save it for Spookathon. It's got a spooky word in the title, ghost, and I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Supernatural stuff, which is right up my street, and I just thought it was brilliant. Really, really enjoyed it. Can't wait to see what she does next, and I am all for Maddie Goodenkauf. Goodenkauf. I'm gonna have to learn how to say that. I apologise, Maddie, if I've royally effed that up. I gave that 5 out of 5 stars because I just thought it was fantastic. I really, really loved it. Oh God, what have I done? Then I read At the Cemetery Gates, Volume 2 by John Brihel and Joseph Sullivan. This was an e-arc that I received off Goodreads and off one of the groups I'm involved in on Goodreads, and John sent me this himself. I actually really enjoyed it. It's a collection of short stories, kind of scary, pretty creepy. I was reading it in bed in the dark, obviously, because that makes loads of sense. Well, I had my lamp on, but I was in the dark essentially, and yeah, there was a point at which I was like, I'm gonna have to read something else now because I'm just not going to sleep with that being the last thing on my mind. But no, really enjoyed it. Thought it was good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Thought it was brilliant. I am going to go back and read Volume 1 as well because I haven't read it before. So yeah. I read Lurking in the Woods by Anne Stryker. This was sent to me by Anne. It was an ebook. Really enjoyed it. It was a retelling and lots going on. Big twist at the end. Didn't see it coming. I have downloaded another one of Anne Stryker's books, which is something like The Pirate's Stowaway or something along those lines, which I do need to get to. I might get to that in December, put it on my TBR. But I'm also reading another one for my Newts readathon, which is The Moon Fairies Night Sky or something similar. So yeah, I really liked her writing. It was a really good story. 5 out of 5 stars I gave it. City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. I listened to this at work, which wasn't necessary because it's not a real long book, but the narrator was sounded really good, and I really enjoyed the narration. Actually, I thought it was really good, and it was a short story. Well, not short story, but shorter than most of the books I listen to, because I tend to go for long books to listen to, because I'll find it daunting to pick the actual book up. For example, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, some Stephen King's books, etc. So I listened to this purely because at the time I was holding back some of the books that I wanted to listen to for my notes, and I wanted something to listen to at work. So I really enjoyed it. Set in Edinburgh. I think it's middle grade, so she's a younger girl who is obsessed with Harry Potter, which is great, and she likes all the Harry Potter places, and she can see ghosts. She can sort of come between the veil and being in our world and the other world. So really good, very enjoyable. Really liked it. Loved the cover of the book. Obsessed. 4 stars I gave it though, because I can't remember why I gave it 4 stars. I'm going to go back and read it at some point though, in the hope that maybe that might bump it up to a 5. Maybe it was the narration, I don't know. But 4 out of 5 stars isn't bad, to be fair, so yeah. Cracked Open by Megan O'Keefe. This is a selection of poetry, not the sort of thing I would usually go for, but I did enjoy it nevertheless. There was a couple that I've really enjoyed, and one that I super enjoyed so much that I actually took a picture of it. It was on my Kindle, so I took a picture of the poem on my Kindle so that I've got it on my phone so I can go back and read it and stuff. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It's not my usual thing, but I did enjoy it nevertheless. And then I read Sadie by Courtney Summers. I actually listened to this one, which I'm really glad I did. I honestly don't know how this book would portray as an actual book to read it rather than listen to it, because this is narrated by several different people. So Sadie's played by someone, the guy who does the podcast is played by someone, Sadie's grandma's played by someone, Sadie's mum's played by someone. The people that they interview throughout the book are all played by different people, or they have a different voice played by one person maybe, I'm not sure, but either way I assume they're all played by different people because the lineup for narration was huge. But this works really well on narration because one chapter is done by Sadie, and then the other chapter is done by the guy that's doing the podcast, who is going around. Sadie's interviewing other people, but this guy is sort of following in suit several months later, and Sadie is looking for a certain person who she believes has murdered her sister. And yeah, it's a very good book. It's heartbreaking at the same time. It's heartwarming. At the end, I was in tears. I was glad that I listened to the rest of it at home rather than at work, which is where I had been listening to it. It was just a very good book. Extremely well written. The narration was fantastic. The woman who did Sadie was really into it. I felt like I wanted to watch it on film. She was that good at playing Sadie. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I am going to buy the book because I love the cover, and I do want to read it and see the difference between reading it and listening to it and see which I prefer. I reckon I'm going to prefer the narration because I think it really got the point across so much better. But yeah, I do want to buy it and see how that goes. Then I read This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. This was a fantastic book. I absolutely loved it. I listened to this at work as well because Adam Kay narrated it himself, and I just thought the guy understands exactly what he's written down on this. He'll know exactly how to portray it, which bits are funny, which bits are not. So it was hilarious. Hilariously heartbreaking, if that makes sense. So I laughed through probably 80% of it, maybe 90% of it, but the last like 10, 15, 20% is kind of heartbreaking. Adam is a junior doctor, well, he was a junior doctor, and at the time he basically wrote down secret diaries, so they have to log everything that happens to them anyway for kind of like professional development purposes. But he was writing extra diaries, if you like, for him to keep, and when he's left his job, when he's come to clear everything out, he's ended up coming across them and put them into a book, which is great. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Hugely. As soon as I picked this up, I knew I was going to anticipate this as a 5 out of 5 stars. So loved it. Thought it was brilliant. Would highly recommend reading it to anybody. Absolutely anyone. Last two, I read Weregirl by C.D. Bell, which was an e-arc from NetGalley. Really enjoyed this. Thought it was a really good book. It is obviously about a girl who gets bitten by a werewolf and turns into a werewolf, but it's her story of transitioning. It takes a while. It's a story about transitioning. It's got some twists and turns in it. It's also a story about her brother's quite sick by something that there are several other children in the town that are also sick, and it's something that's been caused by the water in the town, and the kids are being treated from the hospital, and there are many twists and turns that go into that our character, whose name currently escapes me because I'm not well, she eventually sort of like comes to a head with it all and figures it all out. It's very good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Absolutely loved the cover. I might actually buy it just for the sake of the cover because I just think it's beautiful. And then the last book that I read this month, I actually listened to because I was told from a co-worker who's got kids that Kate Winslet actually narrated this, and I love Kate Winslet's voice. So I listened to Matilda by Roald Dahl. I really enjoyed it. It was very screechy though, like quite screechy, because of Miss Trunchbull, and Kate sort of portrayed Miss Trunchbull as a very screamy, screechy character. Obviously she's always shouting at the kids. So but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And that is my wrap up. 17 books this month, which is quite impressive. Well, not this month, October, which is quite impressive. I enjoyed the majority of them, but my favourites would have to be Sadie, This Is Going to Hurt, How to Survive a Ghost Story, what else? Lurking in the Woods by Anne Stryker, and probably The Fourth Monkey by J.D. Barker, and City of Ghosts. They're probably like my top. How many did I say then? 6? 5, 6? From this month. So yeah, I did alright, I think. I hope I can read that sort of amount for November. Like, we're a couple of days in and I've already done quite a few books, but I don't know. I'm kind of flagging. I'm not sure why, so I just want to pick myself up and get on with it, really. But yeah, I will. Oh, I also did a review on. Did I ever say that? The Fourth Monkey? Yeah, I did. I'll leave it below. Just going on with myself now. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of those books, what you thought of them. I'd also love to know your opinion on if you've read Sadie rather than listening to it, or if you've listened to it and read it. Please let me know down below in the comments what you thought, because I'm really, really interested to find out what people's opinions are of it. Don't get me wrong, I 100% reckon it's going to be like a 5 out of 5 star if you read it rather than listen to it, but I just wonder what people's opinions are if they've read and listened to it, or if they've just read it. I'd love to know what people think. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It'd be great to see you around, and yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.